Hello, everybody. It's not necessarily an episode of Let's Talk Broncos, but I'm sitting here with Zach. Zach has been geeking out about some of the cap, salary cap, different type of stuff like that. The talk of Broncos Town is, how do the Broncos get under that Russell Wilson contract if they do have to move on? When should they do it? How can they do it? What are some options or avenues the Broncos can explore doing that? So, yeah, Zach, I think this is fun. I thank you for setting this all up.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for joining me for it. It'll definitely help me out. I just think, hey, there's a real appetite for this information. I did my little tweet breakdown last year, and people enjoyed that. And I thought, why limit myself to 280 characters? Can be a little more accurate and precise doing it this way. So yeah, and I think, I guess the opening thesis statement I'd lead with is, don't be doom and gloom, Broncos country. This is very
talking to you, Frankie Abbott. I'm talking to you.
yeah. Remember the LTB podcast? I was actually here. So the start of this was me putting a lot of things in our group chat at like 1 a.m. Last night, breaking down all this stuff. And then on top of that, I was DMing Frankie separately because Frankie's been the doom and gloom member of the show. And I was like, hey man, I know you're worried about these aspects, but here's some more salary details for you. So don't be too doom and gloom. I think it all lines up pretty well for the Broncos, actually.
Okay, perfect. Well, Zach, get into it. I want to know, how do the Broncos, what do you think the best avenue, or I'm going to ask you this right off the bat. What is the most realistic avenue, and can you explain how that works for the Broncos if they do have to get rid of Russ?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think the most realistic avenue is going to be a cut after this season. There's no way you hold on to Russ for 1 year. So how Russell Wilson's contract works, or a big part of it, and I think this is important for everyone to know, because Spotrac and Over the Cap aren't accounting for these guarantees yet because they haven't gone into effect. But if Russell Wilson, because he has to avoid like certain injury issues, but basically if Russell Wilson is on the Denver Broncos roster March of 2024, so right around the corner here, right after the season, I think it's like March 15th is the exact date. His 2025 contract becomes fully guaranteed. It's $50 million. So it makes no sense to keep him for a year because you're not decreasing the dead cap hit. You're paying off part of that $85 million tab that currently exists. Because he's going to be your quarterback this year, but that guarantee goes into effect and piles on an additional amount. So you go from having an $85 million dead cap hit if you released him this offseason to an $86 million dead cap hit if you released him next offseason. The options for the Broncos are either 2+ more years of Russ or getting off it right now. I think they would get off it right now and eat that $85 million, though. They'd probably use a post-June cut to kind of break it up, make it a little more manageable.
Okay, yeah, and you mentioned post-June cut. Can you explain to the people what that does, or even what that is? Because I'm always confused by that. Everyone always throws out, well, if you do a post-June cut, I'm not salary cap guy. I don't understand any of this stuff. So yeah, break that down for us.
It's a weird rule, especially because the cut or the trade, if it's a post-June trade, does not have to happen post-June. It can happen in May. It can happen in April, and you get, I think it's 3. You can designate 3, it might be like 2, 5, somewhere in there, but you can designate X number of cuts, trades to be kind of read out by the cap as a post-June move. And that basically just allows you to spread the dead cap hit over 2 seasons instead of taking it all in that one. Now, dead cap, just so people know, because that's another kind of weird term that just gets tossed around. Dead cap is money, guaranteed money that has already been paid to the player. Like, so when Russell Wilson signed his deal, the Broncos gave him, this number's not real, but like $200 million signing bonus or whatever it was. He got that money in his bank account pretty much immediately. I'll oversimplify and say, he got all that money in his bank account that day. But because that would be insane to have a $200 million cap hit in one season for a player, the NFL allows you to take those guarantees and spread it over the life of a deal, just to make it more reasonable for teams, even though the money's already been exchanged hands. So if you then abort that deal before it's all the way completed, whether that be by a trade or a cut, the salary cap might have to account for that money that you've already given out, but that the cap hadn't accounted for yet. So it might all get accelerated into that current season. So the Broncos have given Russ $80 million that the salary cap has not accounted for yet. The salary cap has to account for that $80 million at some point. It would happen over the life of Russell Wilson's contract if they were to keep him on the roster. But because they're going to cut or trade him, that money gets accelerated into the now because it has to account for it. Doing it post-June allows you to spread that over 2 years. That's the, I think, important stuff there. And a little note on this too, restructuring is taking salary and turning it into guarantees. So you lessen the cap hit of a player this year. So like the Broncos are paying Russ $40 million this year. If they wanted to bring that down, they could turn $20 million of that into guarantees and then spread that $20 million over the 4 or 5 years he has remaining, therefore saving them like $15 million or whatever. That's basically how restructures work. Now, that remaining $15 million doesn't just go away. It becomes dead cap. So that's why you won't see any restructures to help the Broncos get out of this contract.
So what people said Frank Clark restructured, or was he literally just giving the money back?
I'm going to be honest. Frank Clark, and I'm glad you asked this because it is another qualifier that I have to mention as a part of all these calculations. Frank Clark's deal is very confusing. It's using something called void years, which are a player's not even part of a team, but the team is paying him anyways. There's like 3 void years on that deal. And I'm not sure how the restructure worked. It's possible Frank Clark wanted out of here so bad that he gave the Broncos money back. I don't think even Over the Cap knows yet. Over the Cap still shows Frank Clark on the Broncos salary cap table, and you can cut or trade him or release him. I was using their cap calculator to do all this math. You can cut him or trade him or whatever. So, and you actually can't. The reason I think it's like that is they haven't updated their database yet, because I think they don't even know what the implications of that are. So I'll be throwing out some money throughout this. Like the Broncos will have this amount of cap space if they release this player or whatever. Just know all those total numbers are like plus or minus 3 million because of the Frank Clark deal. They could have all that money saved. They could have all that money, again, accelerated into the current year and therefore like costing them cap space. I'm not sure. It's a very bizarre, very complicated contract.
Interesting. Okay. That one is really weird. I mean, the way I understood it from Twitter, believe everything online, guys, is that he just gave the money back. That's what I keep hearing. But
it seems that way. I just don't want to make that assumption in my calculation. So I did not factor in Frank Clark's money at all. It could be could mean the Broncos have $3 million more dollars to work with than I'm throwing out in these calculations. I think it could also mean they have like 3 million less. So just something for everyone to keep in mind.
Okay, perfect. And another avenue I want to cover, Zach, with you is, there's a lot of, hey, could the Broncos trade Russ out there? And what does that look like? To me, it all just seems very unrealistic. Like, I don't think a team's going to want to trade for Russ on the salary he is. But, yeah, do you think there is any legitimacy to that? Or how would that affect the Broncos if they ended up doing it?
If not for that clause I just mentioned about how on the 5th day of the upcoming league year, so again, March 2024 sometime, his 2025 salary becomes fully guaranteed. If not for that little nugget, I think this contract would be super tradable. You would have to eat some dead cap, but the team taking him on would be getting Russell Wilson for like $30 million a year. And you know what? I think that's probably about his market value now. That contract wouldn't be terrible. They also wouldn't have a big dead cap hit hovering over their head. They'd be able to cut him and move on, no problem. However, he does have that clause in his contract that will fully guarantee 2025. And that means any team that trades for him will more or less have to want to pay him $50 million in 2025. Okay. And what team is going to want to do that? So it's possible, and it would be great. A cut is going to make the Broncos eat $88 million in dead cap. A trade, they would only eat $14 million. So, oh my God, that would be amazing if they could find a partner. The issue is that $74 million doesn't just evaporate. It goes somewhere. it goes on to the books of the team that acquires Russell Wilson and what team wants to give up some sort of capital, or even if it was a Brock Osweiler type of deal. I don't think any team wants to take on that contract.
Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty much it as well. And can you just here's the main thing, right? It's the doom and gloom. It's everybody being so upset. We mentioned at the beginning of the show, man. It's that part. I really have a hard time understanding all of this. Like I said, just please tell us. You said the most realistic option was cutting him post June, right? That's probably the most realistic option for the Broncos. Can you shed some light on how that is a positive and how they end up accomplishing that? Like, what are the moves the Broncos have to do?
Yeah, it's honestly pretty easy. So the number they have to get to, and this is a rough estimation, I think they have to get to about 43 million. It is about what I'm estimating. They have to get to they're currently 12 million in the red. They have negative $12 million in 2024 cap space right now. Cutting Russ wildly does not impact that at all. His cap hit for 2024 will be his cap hit for 2024, whether he's off the roster or on the roster. So cutting him doesn't actually make the Broncos salary situation for 2024 any more difficult than it already is. It does up it a little in 2025. More or less, it's about the same as if they were keeping Russ, though. And they'll be left with $150 million in 2025 cap space. So this is very, very, very manageable. The advantage to a pre-June first cut is you're eating all the dead cap now. It's not lingering around their franchise for a while. I don't think the Broncos would do that because, again, they can push that cap hit, half that cap hit into 2025 and still have $150 million to play with. So I think that's the avenue they'll take. So how do they free up that 12 million? And then you also want to factor in re-signings like Lloyd Cushenberry. They probably want to bring back Will Lutz, Adam Troutman, Mike Purcell, PJ Locke, K'Wan Williams. I think could all maybe be brought back. If they decided to bring in all those guys, the total average annual value of against the cap of that group of six would be about $21 million. So 21 mil plus the 12 mil they're already in the hole, plus about 10 plus mil for a rookie class. You end up with about $43 million is the number the Broncos have to get to. Cutting Tim Patrick or trading him is going to happen this offseason. You have the ACL, you have the Achilles injury. It's very unfortunate, but I think it's just the reality of the situation at this point. That cut or trade, either way, frees up $10 million for the Denver Broncos. Again, number we want to get to is 43. Courtland Sutton. I think this is another one where you do a post-June cut because you can split his $7.6 million dead cap hit over 2 years. Again, you have $150 million to play with next year. You're in the red this year. It makes sense to kind of push that dead cap hit down the line. You can't do that with many of these either. So you can do it in the Russell Wilson case. You can do it in the Courtland Sutton case. I think it makes sense to do
Zach,
it there.
I have a quick question for you real quick because you mentioned Courtland Sutton. I think some of these players that you might list off here as cuts, they could be traded, right? Does that affect the cap the same way if you cut or trade them, or like what's the difference there?
Yeah, that's a good question. Sutton, if you trade him now, so we're still in the 2023 season. Right. So it would count or on the league calendar. We're in the 2023 cycle. So you would be, he would qualify as a post-June cut on the 2023 cycle. It wouldn't mess up any of your math there. So I believe you'd be looking at the $7 million dead cap hit spread over 2 years. I'm glad you asked that. Actually, I am realizing now I didn't look into it. If you were to trade him before the trade deadline, and again, there's a very good chance that happens. Yeah, they have about 7 million left on the deal. It's going to be the same numbers I'm throwing out.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right, cool.
There's 7.6 mil in guarantees remaining on that deal. If they do a pre-June move, so that would be between March and June of this upcoming year, that will be 7.6 mil in dead cap automatically. If they were to trade him before the current trade deadline or I guess cut him or trade him and designate it as a post-June move, you're looking at splits of 3.8 and 3.8 over 2 years. Actually, I just realized one nice aspect of trading him this year is you're eating all that dead cap hit in 2023 and 2024. So you don't have 3.8 mil in dead cap for 2025. So instead of like 150, you'd have 153.8 or whatever. So that might be nice, especially because I think that's when you are truly trying to launch things around your young quarterback. You have all the financial issues come off the books and you're kind of ready to launch a rebuild. That's another thing I noticed putting this together. The Broncos aren't really committed to many players up to 2025. A lot of their current deals are expiring this year or in 2024. And as a result, they can get a pretty clean slate quickly. But so you look at the Sutton deal, that would be one. You're freeing up, again, if it's a pre-June move, you'll free up 9.8. If you do a post-June move, you'll free up 13.5 million. Again, Patrick was 10 million in savings. Judy, another trade deadline guy. If they are to trade him before the trade deadline or in the spring, they can wait till the spring and have the same effects. They will free up $13 million. They will free up $0 by cutting him. So a cut will not happen. But if they can find a trade partner, they free up 13 million. So again, trying to get to 43, Patrick, Sutton, Judy get you to 36.5. So we're already like almost where we need to be. And that's not just to get to the salary floor. That's to get to the salary floor, resign the free agents, all the free agents that the Broncos might want to resign and sign their rookie class. So, good bit of money there.
It's
sorry.
Go ahead.
I know I'm kind of word salading here, but Justin Simmons, another one they can cut. He's a cap hit of 18.25 in 2024 if he stays on the roster. If they cut him, they'll free up $14.5 million.
Oh, wow. They save a lot.
Yeah. So that would be those four moves right there. Get the Broncos where they need to go and then some. They would be $51 million. They need to get to 43. So then you have $8 million of spending money where you can maybe sign some free agents. And again, I'll circle back to you have $150 million for 2025's offseason. They can backload some guarantees on these deals.
Exactly.
And remain active in free agency this upcoming season. So if you're worried about how are we going to support Caleb Williams or Drake May or whoever, I wouldn't be so worried about that because they should be able to get some players still interested, especially with long-term guarantees, which are becoming harder and harder to come by in the NFL and more and more desired by the players. Last one, DJ Jones. I think he's been a good player. You might not want to cut him, but he is approaching 30. The timelines might not align. $13 million cap hit to be on the roster, $10 million in savings if you move off him. That brings the total, depending on if Sutton is a pre-June or a post-June move. If you made all five of those moves, moving off Patrick, Sutton, Judy, Simmons, Jones, you're looking at $66.3 to $70 million. Or, taking out that like 43 million number, 23.3 to $27 million in spending money left over. The Bulls one is a little dicey because do you want to open up a hole at left tackle? Yes, you maybe save $16 million, but you're spending that first round pick on a quarterback. You don't pick again until the third. So now you're looking at, okay, great. You have $16 million, but you now have to find a left tackle. You're probably either spending that $16 million to do that and maybe downgrading on Bulls, or you're starting like a third round rookie. And that's very unappealing too. So Bulls is a lever that I'm not pulling for this exercise because I think it might cause more problems than it fixes, but that's another option available to the Broncos that would free up an additional 16 mil.
Right. And I want to make one thing clear, just because I know how this is all going to go, because I saw Zach going at it with people last year. The idea here isn't to make the Broncos great for next year. Everyone is going to be commenting, and I know they will. So we're just not going to field a team next year? Is that what you're saying, Zach? And here's the main point. You have to start fresh, and the idea is how do we get up under Russell Wilson's contract and start to move towards the future. He's just laying out some avenues to do that. I understand some people want to, be competitive every single year. It's not necessarily the idea next year. We're starting the rebuild process to try to get the Broncos good again. This is how you have to go about it. You might suck for a couple of years, but hey, it's part of it. There's plenty of examples of teams doing stuff like this. Miami, there's a lot of examples of teams really, really bad for a couple of years, getting up under contracts, not doing well, and then, building that team back up. And I think that's the idea.
Totally. And looking at the salary cap tables and how it all lines up, I would tell Broncos fans to look at the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow. I think that is a realistic trajectory. Not necessarily the Super Bowl in year 2 aspect. I think they almost lost to the Raiders in the first round of the playoffs that year at home, and they got a lot of lucky breaks in the playoffs. But I think the Broncos could be that level of playoff team, like in the wild card round, year 2 of whatever rookie quarterback they have. I really think it could happen that quickly. I think you're hoping.
You obviously have to hit on the quarterback, but yes.
Yes. This is assuming you hit on the quarterback. If you miss, that makes everything more complicated. But I think in year 1, you're hoping to look like this year's Houston Texans. Scrappy, fun. Hey, they've got the quarterback right. They look well coached. Future's bright. And you maybe go 7-10, 8-9, whatever. I think that's very realistic, honestly, because I'm listing these moves. These are not moves the Broncos all have to make. So Bulls, Judy, Justin Simmons, DJ Jones, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick. Moving all those guys leaves you with $43 million of spending money left over after you manage a Russ cap hit, after you get out of the red, after you sign your rookie class, after you re-sign all the free agents you want. I'm laying out all the puzzle pieces for you, the listener, to create the Russ cut fantasy of your dreams. You do not have to make all of these moves. You don't. You also, that number, that $43 million number, is assuming you want to re-sign $21 million worth of free agents. If you're fine letting Mike Purcell walk, or K'Wan Williams, or Adam Troutman, which it's not hard to be fine with letting those guys walk, you can decrease that and make it, make the number you have to get to like 37. And again, all these moves get you to a total of 86. So it's not, oh my God, we have to get rid of all our wide receivers and Garrett Bowles and Justin Simmons and DJ. No, you have to make like 3 or 4 of those moves. You can make all of them if you want, and clean the slate totally, but you don't have to make all of them. A few smaller little moves the Broncos could make. I've separated out the big money moves. Alex Singleton can move off him if they can find a trade partner. A cut will not really save them money, but if they can find a trade partner, they can free up $4.7 million that way. If they can, with P. Ryan, if they want to cut or trade him, that's $3 million. Stidham, they could cut him and save $5 million. But circling back to the point I made with Bulls, if you do that, you then have to replace him. You're going to have to find a backup quarterback somewhere. You're probably not drafting a rookie to back up the rookie. So you're making a veteran signing probably in the 3.5 million range. That's what Minshew's making this year, for example. So you're really only saving like 1.5 mil there. Cutting Manhurts saves you 2 to 2.5 mil, depending if you do pre or post June. Cutting Tremont Smith, I think that's one that we almost definitely see happen, saves 2.5 million. Cutting Uwazurike, this is another one we see happen, will free up at least 800K. I think they'll be able to cut him with cause, which will make it a $1.2 million signing.
That's crazy.
He's weirdly still on the cap table for 24. It's weird. And he's buried. I was like looking for the options. He is at the very bottom, even though he's not the cheapest contract. He's at the very, very bottom. So I almost didn't find him, but that's an extra $1 million the Broncos can scrounge up.
Shout out gambling, man.
And it might be nice because I don't know if he'd be worth, I don't know if he was going to be a great draft pick anyways. So basically you can make all these, all those little moves is 16 million total. So all these moves total: Bulls, Jones, Simmons, Judy, Sutton, Patrick, Singleton, P. Ryan, Stidham, Manhurts, Tremont Smith, and Uwazurike would free up the Broncos $102 million. They currently,
Yep.
if you want to be bare bones, like what is the bare minimum they have to free up to manage a rust cut? 12. They have to get to the number 12. I just laid out a bunch of moves, all of which are very palatable. And if they were to do all of them, it'd get them to 102. So again, it's not that the Broncos have to cut all these guys. It's not that the Broncos have to trade all these guys. They have to come up with, they have to just do one or two of these moves. And then it's
you have to cut the big names. I mean, the big names alone will do it. Like there's plenty of avenues there, and that makes me happy.
The trade deadline moves. If they trade Sutton and Judy at the trade deadline, it's solved. It's solved. And then everything else would be cherry on tops to bring back free agents to help set up your rookie quarterback for success. And I'm not saying I wouldn't want to do additional moves. I'm of the mindset I would. I'm trying to win everyone over here. If you want a dramatic teardown, there is the path for that. If you want to just pull out a few pieces here and there and, hey, I really think Vance Joseph is the problem, I don't want to make things too much worse, fine. You can do that too. You can manage this Russell Wilson cut just about any way you want. It is incredibly manageable.
Cool. Hey, I would love to, Zach, have one of these salary cap experts come on here with you and talk about that one of these days. That'd be super fun. We should try to set that up for the future. DM some people, message some people around, and see if we can get anybody on here to talk with you. That would be super fun. Anything else you want to add before I sign out here, Zach?
No, I think I've already gone plenty long enough. I would say you can still do pre-June. It just becomes a lot harder. Then we are talking about, because you're taking, instead of 35 this year, you're taking all 85 this year. So it just raises the bar on all those numbers you have to hit. The number you have to hit is a little closer to 102 million, which is kind of the maximum you free up making all those moves. So it becomes a lot more uncomfortable. You are going to either have to cut Bulls, trade Bulls, sign him to an extension. So then you can restructure that extension and kind of push the money into the future. Maybe restructure Zach Allen, Mike McGlinchey, or Ben Powers. That's why I think they don't do the pre-June cut. I think that's when the salary moves get a little uncomfortable. That'd be the one other thing I'd throw out there, but that's it. Thank you, Joey, so much for your time and helping me spew all this number nonsense.
For sure, guys. Hey, and like I said, we're going to try to do more of this type of stuff. If you're interested in this, I would love to have another salary cap guy on here with Zach. I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to this stuff. I love football, and I have a hard time with the number stuff with football. So it's nice having Zach around to explain it to me. But yeah, guys, like, subscribe. Make sure you guys are following all our content. I think this should be going out tomorrow, which is Monday. And yeah, so catch us tonight for you guys, as we will be going live at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And until next time, go Broncos. Look forward to the future.
Broncos.